record this?
Absolutely, isn't just doing that.
It's just started. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
So we agreed that AI adoption is emerging, but still exploratory. Data validation and trust in the information is the primary pain point in digital handover. Regulation 38 handover pressure is creating systemic risk. Information retention and version control failures are widespread. The client's requirements are the starting point, but also often the weakness. Standardization is the enabling foundation for automation. And we looked at some practical examples and agreed we needed to get more of that. In terms of next steps, I think George and Tim will be actually building on those next steps right this second. George, take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, so this session is about some practical examples, and what we've set up two follow-up meetings to this on the in 2 weeks' time, and then another 2 weeks' time after that. So if you like what you see today, then and you've got some examples maybe of how you're using AI, then that would be worthwhile putting forward. But the scope, remember, this is BIM in asset management, so we want to limit or focus the use of the AI on how do we get good quality as-built information at digital handover that we can rely on, and importantly that we can keep up to date. This, let's see, image there, this was, you won't be surprised to know, this was AI generated. I can't remember which platform I used to do it, but the process that we're following here is that the golden thread is the common DNA that's going through all of these different processes of planning, creation, and then operation. And the principle behind it is the information is being created properly, it's being built upon, and we then end up with something that is complete at the end that we can rely on. Now, sadly, in many cases, that's not the reality where we are at the moment. So part of the exercise that we're going through today is how we can address that. One of the challenges that we've got that you will have seen me, or some of you will have seen me do this before, we might have a model, we might have CAD data that comes from that model, we might have COBie data, we might have O&M information, and it, you know, to be frank, a lot of the information that we need for asset management is still being delivered in documents, and we might have 360 photos, but because they're not connected, and this is an important thing that Tim's going to be going through today, because they're not connected, it's very difficult to check them and verify to see whether all of the information that you needed was actually provided. And therefore, what we're trying to do is make it so that we can interrogate all of that information and then be able to connect it up maybe afterwards, you know. So it shouldn't be necessary. I know that this is something that Pierre would obviously strongly advocate, that it should be done properly, but the reality is that it's often not happening, and it may need the connections may need to be made that reflect the way FM is working rather than the way the design is working. So looking at the process at the moment, we're expecting that information is going to come through from models where we've got them, maybe from schedules, and the schedules again is something that we're going to be covering shortly. And the other beauty that we can do with this is also use 360 photographs. So there are ways that we can then use the 360 photographs as a way of navigating the complex data. Um, Now, right from when we started BIM for Housing, probably 6 years ago, um, I've been banging on about the fact that we need machine readable data. And a lot of people in those days, they didn't really understand what that meant. There's still a lot of people that think the golden thread is about documents. The other thing that was a fundamental core of what we did with BIM for Housing is to encourage collaboration. And I think that we've been very successful in that. I think we've generated a huge amount of joint knowledge that we can then use. But the most important thing I think that's enabled us to do that is provide a context in which the information, that machine readable information, and what information's needed is actually there. And what we're doing there is we've used spaces and assets as a mechanism to gather together the knowledge of people and ask scenarios that we can then work to. We've also taken some other drivers that we've got. So, for example, statutory drivers, which provides the business case for why some of this information is needed. But statutory is only one part of the equation. There's also looking at operational integrity and whether the facility is actually going to be supported properly. So those are also drivers for us. And again, spaces and assets are key to that. And just going on with the same theme, we've got again fire safety or energy or running cables and things like that. We need to know where the fire barriers are, etc., to make sure that fire safety isn't compromised. So the group here that we've got and the wider Golden Thread Task Force group, it's our intention to bring this together into something that commercially can make sense to people. So the time that you're investing in these sessions, what we're hoping to do is to bring it together so that we've got experts who have already identified some solutions that they can provide, but then come together as a collective, so that we've got people that are able to work as teams. So when clients then have a need, they can come and recruit a team that is already working together. So rather than looking at the silos of work packages, being able to look at something that's joined up, because that's what's needed for the golden thread.
Sorry, George, can I just be clear about that? So
Yes,
this is commercial.
The Golden Thread Task Force, yes, our intention is to make it commercial from a point of view of making sure that the people that are able and willing to provide services can do so and charge a fee for that. Now, what the mechanism is of actually doing that, Richard, what we're doing at the moment is really just trying to understand what capabilities people are able to offer, and then bring those together. But we're already doing this with, for example, doing surveys and 360 asset capture and things like that. So we've already been able to act as a community that is bringing people together. So it's bringing together people that have got a need with people that can deliver a solution.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So, for example, if we've got a proper classification system where people are comparing apples with apples, and we've got proper taxonomy and things are referenced properly, it means that when people are putting together specifications and standards, they're actually referring to the right and consistent information. So everybody's singing off the same hymn sheet. That's a major part of what the golden thread is able to do, as long as it's done used properly. We also want to make it so that if people are using modeling applications or reality capture or inspection applications, that everybody's actually working to an agreed standard so that we've got something that's repeatable. So that's overall this is my vision for the Golden Thread Task Force. I'd be happy to stop for a second there and just see whether people are on board with that.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, isn't it? It's quite a different model than we used to actually discussing. Somebody must have some comments on that or some thoughts. If nobody
George,
volunteers, you know I'll pick on you.
George, if I can add in, I think what's really important is that we've got a new build from design stage all the way through. And then we've got those where it's an existing facility that is being purposed. And that gives us two streams. At the end of the day, they should be the same. But when you're capturing it, information and data, it becomes the procurement for the QS, etc. So it's really important, I think, to have whatever these streams are, just to consider them. And that makes a specific package for people. Thank you.
The other thing, Pierre, with that is that there's a perception that there's a new build and then a facilities and then an asset management side of things, right? But actually, during the asset management side of things, you're constantly having new projects. So that new build aspect of things is an ongoing thing rather than a direct break.
Tom Rudge, what are your thoughts on what George just said, just presented?
Hi all. Yes. So I think for me, as you raise the point around the commercial aspect, trying to understand how, again, this all pieces together and obviously provides that value and the pain points really. So I know you mentioned here sort of on that technical level, sort of understanding how that works from that point of view. But of course, for sort of higher up the chain, then how do you see that working for sort of the, again, director level and people on that sort of point of view, should we say?
Well, what we're trying to do, what I'm trying to do with this is that people are giving up their time to come along and learn and share their knowledge and the like, which is great. And I want to encourage that and continue that altruistic way of doing it. But at the end of the day, unless the organization starts to see some income from it, then that will drop away. So we need to potentially look at how we can bring together people that can deliver solutions. And they're going to deliver solutions much more effectively if they trust each other and if they're using standardized processes that have been tested and proven. And that then builds confidence with client organizations who can come and engage with people that are more likely to be able to deliver against that. So that's what we're trying to do. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah. Okay. Kevin Flippin.
Yeah, I was going to say, echoing George's point, really, I guess if you don't make it so that it's solutions based or that the purpose of the group is to come up with a workable output, then it simply becomes a talking shop, doesn't it? It goes around in circles. And I guess our objective is to create something, whatever that might be, and whether it's commercialized and in what way, but to create something that people can actually use to make buildings safer and to follow the golden thread aims and objectives. And I'm sure that we've got people on the group and around the table, as it were, with all of the skills in order to pull that together and be able to offer it to others.
Yes. So, for example, the technology that we as Active Plan have been showing for some time now, the 360 asset tagging, we've certainly had lots of people come along and buy into that. Some of them are actually doing it with us, and some of them are going ahead and doing it themselves. Now, when the people that are doing it themselves, when I've watched what they're actually doing, they've lost a lot of the value that they would have got if they'd done it with us. Yeah, and that's because they've not looked at things in that joined up way.
And
Yeah.
I think just to sort of echo that, George, and perhaps expand it a little more, that again, if you take any one of a number of initiatives that collectively form the kind of CDE, and you only build on one element without considering the whole platform, what you effectively do is you make a bigger problem for yourselves, because you're creating more data in one silo without improving the quality or the links to the other bits of data in all the other silos. So what that means is you end up with more non-conformances than you had at the beginning. So I think, sometimes people take a kind of what might be called quick win, but in actual fact they're just look at me solutions, rather than the bigger picture, which often just involves lots of grind and hard sort of slog to get all the data together before you can then link it and make it work properly.
Absolutely. Victoria Finn, you're psychic. I was just going to pick on you.
Oh, cheers. I think actually Kevin's just said what I was going to say, really. I was just really thinking, yeah, it's great to have all these verified areas or applications in which to take the information from. But as we know, if you don't work more holistically than that, then that information taken in isolation doesn't always work. Similar to regulation, building regulations, it might go against manufacturers' instructions, etc. So yeah, it does need that that team that can make sure that they're not going against something else when they put something together. It's a quite holistic approach, and I think really that's just what Kevin was just saying. So before I put my hand up.
Okay, can I move on, Richard?
Absolutely. Yeah. Can you just quickly, Chris?
Sorry, Chris.
That's all right. No, I will be quick. Yeah, thanks, both. I mean, I completely agree with everything that's been said. I just my experience in the last, whatever it's been, a few months, year, whatever, in terms of sort of diving into this and on this forum, which I think is excellent, and others, is that I actually don't think that there's been enough time spent on the drivers that you mentioned there, George, because if we get those drivers right in terms of what the, if you like, the storytelling, the drivers behind it, then it becomes more client driven, and then the market can respond and react to that. I almost wonder if there's a step back before we dive into the detail of saying, well, actually, there is a statutory driver here, there is the operational integrity driver, and this is the case study that explains this. I don't think there's been enough of that in terms of what we're seeing out there at the moment, because I'm still struggling in my business and with our clients to get across the real need for it. I know this is a group that I think is convinced, and I'm fully on board with it, but there's still, well, if not resistance, I think reticence to it. And so I think that the business case still needs to be made. Thank you.
Yeah. No.
One of the things that we are doing, Chris, that I can't remember if I've shown you, but we've been working over the last month on a business benefits side of things, literally for the golden thread, going through step by step. And that's an exercise that we've been exploring this week on meetings with schools, residential blocks, and yesterday was a really good one on healthcare. So what we're trying to do that to put some meat behind the bone as to what are the practical benefits and what is the cost savings or the financial savings for that. So I'll share that with you.
That's great.
We're actually getting some rough figures around that actually. So we're doing quite well.
Good. Okay.
Okay, so, carry on, George.
So we've got now a lot of companies that are willing to provide APIs and connectability, and that's been transformational. And this is where this is going. So these are the people that have signed up for this particular session. So there's possibly you may not be on this, you should be, but it may be that that you've we're basically trying to grow this group. So we've got quite a good group now around this. And one of the things that's interesting, I think, on AI at the moment is that there's big question marks. Most of the AI companies, I don't know if you've been listening to this in the news, but there's a big recognition now from their investors as to where they're actually going to make their money from. Because at the moment, really, most of the AI is pretty much free. Even if you've got a paid subscription, it's £20 a month or something like that. That no way reflects the income that's needed. And it's also because of that, people are just using it for things, which is great. We're experimenting, but it's hugely inefficient because we're using it to fix largely unstructured information. And if we had a proper golden thread where the information was being collected progressively through the project, then there wouldn't be a need to do the same level of fixing of information. The other thing is that as a collective, we're probably asking the same questions of the LLMs. Hundreds or thousands of people are going to be asking the same questions of the LLMs. Whereas, there's a perception that there's benefit to the AI companies because people are using those, those questions are training the LLMs. But that's not the case. That's not the way AI works. So the result of that is that, again, all of that effort isn't really benefiting anybody. So we've got a lot of waste. A way of solving that is to do a lot more standardization and share the results of what we're doing queries on. And we're going to show you some examples of that later. So therefore, we're rather than repeatedly asking the same queries, maybe we do it once and then share it many times. Also, we look at that from a point of view of how we can then make the level of connection that's needed. So that flows. So we get we're currently what we're doing, we're getting an outcome that's disconnected, whereas what we actually need is something that's connected. And the result of that for us at the moment, we're having to reverse engineer what's being provided, which is a worthwhile thing to do because people need the connected outcome, but it's a challenge to do. So part of what we're looking to do within the Golden Thread Task Force is put together a team of people who are interested enough in AI to actively engage with us in this. And the sort of working title that we've got for this is automate. So we're looking at ways that we can then use AI to audit documents, for example, to organize information into much more easily found folders and virtual folders. We're looking to use it to add taxonomy that should have been there at the beginning, but if it's not there, then be able to reapply it. And also to create structured outputs from unstructured information. So that's what we're going to be showing you shortly. And then, as I said earlier, the idea is that we can then have a community model and a degree of commerciality in there so that we can share experiences, be able to test tools out so that if Kevin comes up with a way of doing something that he's willing to share with the group, then other people can then use it and build on it rather than going back to first principles and doing the same thing. But he needs to see something that benefits him from it as well. So that's why we need the group to be fairly tight, a group of people that are willing to work collaboratively and put some effort in to get some rewards, and then refine the methods and then release for wider use. and arrive at some sort of commercial model.
George, Margaret's got her hand up. Are you okay to take a question?
I am.
Margaret.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Richard. Margaret Saki, University College London. The person just now who raised the issue about clients, I don't know who it was. Somebody raised the issue about clients don't are not even sort of on board with things, don't understand it, type of thing. Am I right? Did I hear somebody say that?
I don't think so.
It was
Somebody said
Chris,
something
I
about
believe.
clients. Huh?
It was Chris, I believe, said that.
Yeah, hi Margaret, it's Chris. Yeah, it wasn't so much the clients are not on board, it's more about the information that's out there to help drive home the reasons and the business case behind doing this.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Fantastic. That's good. That's what I wanted to hear, because as Richard and George know my beef in this, the clients are not fully understanding, and because of that, how are clients going to come on board? We know the law. We know that we've got to comply with the law. Kicking and screaming, we've got to comply with the law. But there's the law, and then there's best practice, isn't there? And there are things that we really should be doing. We should have been doing this anyway. So, what my question is, George, working group coming up with solutions, people with all the brains around the table, fantastic. Are there any clients here on this call? Question.
Yeah, Paul Eden, he's from Warwick University.
Oh, hi, Paul. We met up in Birmingham,
yeah.
UH. Yeah, brilliant. Fantastic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, Paul.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Need to understand they got additional duties, legal duties, personal liabilities. Also, this is important. Clients need to be on board. Where are we signposting? I know that's not really the subject matter of this forum, but if clients are not on board, we're not going to get the traction and the buy-in.
Yeah, Margaret, absolutely, you're right. That's basically what we're trying to do with the benefits side of things. So we've got a work stream looking at that. So let me press on if it's okay.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so one of the challenges that we've got is that often the asset management information is coming from design models rather than from the models that have been created or not done by the installation contractors. So there's a big problem at the moment, fundamental problem in getting as-built records, which is what we were talking last week about, Margaret. Now, what we've been doing as Active Plan, this is on an office development. We've actually made it so that we can. This is a mini case study. We've made it so that we can take a zip file of 10,000 documents and then analyze the content of those and then identify where things, for example, some of the files, they've got unknown references or file types, which is just wasting people's time. Also, as Tim's going to show you, we've been doing some tools to analyze information so that we can find out whether the handover information does or doesn't provide what's needed. And we've also been developing ways of auditing O&Ms using subject matter experts who can go through a particular work package and identify snags in the documents themselves. So to be able to say, does it contain an asset schedule? Does it contain data sheets? Does it include information on spares? So this may seem trivial, but the fact is that regularly we're finding that information isn't there, and the FMs are being pressured to sign it off, and then when they go and look for the operating requirements of a particular product, they haven't got it because it was never actually provided, or it was provided in a form that was disconnected. So what we've then done is used that to be able to produce a report very quickly, so that we can go back to each of the work packages and say, well, there's quite a bit still that you've not provided. And if that can be done quickly and automatically, it's going to make it a lot easier. So this, for example, is one of the prompts that we've created based on that manual auditing process. So just to clarify, we're going from a situation where we're tracking what a subject matter expert does to carry out that type of analysis and report. And now we've got tools to automate that process. And also then go from there to actually then produce the outputs that then can go back to the various different trade contractor packages to get them to correct things.
George, Nick has got his hand up. Can you take a question?
Can I just finish this bit, Nick? And
of course.
Yeah. So in this particular example, this is an office development. You'll see here in the Kobe data, from a door schedule perspective, there was no tag number, so there's no door reference to it. So this is information that should have been right, but the way the models were created, there was inconsistencies, and therefore by being able to automate that auditing, it means that we've got the opportunity to then, in this case, it's referencing back to door schedules, and the information in the two just don't match up. Similarly, I think there was 20 or 30 door types in this particular development in the model or in the Kobe data. In fact, when we looked at the door schedules, there was over 100. Now, those need to be properly tied together and referenced. The information was provided in O&M handover just as PDFs. So it's very difficult to actually do anything with that, other than being able then to take that information and then turn it into a spreadsheet, which could then be referenced in the database. And in exactly the same way, I think there was 5 different door suppliers, and the door schedules again were provided as PDFs, all in different formats. We also discovered that the drawings themselves, the references on the drawings, didn't actually relate to the floor that they were on. So we've got things here where on the first floor, we've got a door reference there that actually is for the second floor. And similarly on this one here, we've got we've got a reference to the second floor and the fourth floor on the same floor plan. Now, we understand why that's happened. It's because they've probably copied the drawings and not used the software properly. But this is very typical of the sort of handover information, and that wouldn't get picked up by the FMs. So I'm going to stop there. Carry on, Nick, please.
Sorry, before you start, we've got a couple of people with questions. Can I ask you to be as brief as you can, because we have got quite a lot to cover still. So, Nick.
Well, I have seen an AI system that will tell you if your building regs or your building safety regulation application is complete. And certainly on the structural side, it seems very perceptive, and it's been trained on the Euro codes, and it tells you if your structural submission correctly uses those Euro codes. So isn't the question really that no one has ever written down what should be in the handover information? Because if we had that, then there are AI systems which will tell you whether a submission is complete or not.
That's what we're doing, Nick. That's the purpose of this group.
So yes, so to define what should be in an O&M, it's something that the industry has always run away from. I think Visria did something about 20 years ago. But
Yeah, no, well, okay, there's two things really. An O&M is not a statutory document. The health and safety file is, but the O&M isn't. And arguably it should be. But it needs to be used in different ways. So what we're trying to do, Nick, in this group is bring together, people like Chris Jeffers, for example, who's an asset management expert. What types of problems are regularly happening? Because that's part of what we're doing. We're mining now help desk information to find out what type of things get reported, so that we can then make sure that we've got the right information.
Okay, Renee.
That doesn't sound right to me.
What? Okay.
Hello. Anyway, yeah, we're in the process of setting up a digital twin, and we've literally manually had to sift through some of the handover information. And these kind of things that you brought up there seems to be typical. We're busy developing our own PC checklist, and it goes much deeper than just what information is supposed to be. It's also how that information might have to be split, because often what happens, things are bundled up, and then the operators can't necessarily find it because it's one document name. It's an ISO naming is great, but it doesn't tell them anything. I've seen recently Cast Consultancy mention TrueLens as an AI they're using for the Building Safety Act reports. So I think what the key thing is to I've been using just ChatGPT to take handover information. So I've had commissioning certificates. I plug it in, and I just said, I don't know anything about MVHR. Have a look at this. Tell me if there's any problems, and it found issues. So it found in the small print partial commissioning notes that actually invalidates it and all of those kind of things. So that was just a simple me knowing nothing about that. So I think if as a group, there's probably knowledge here that we could probably create those prompts, and which you kind of alluded to, George.
Exactly.
And then there's a bigger picture to understand how that information probably needs to be split, so that we can start creating classifications or structures or for this information. That's my experience anyway.
Absolutely, that's absolutely part of what we're going to be covering. Margaret, can I ask you to be brief?
Okay, I'll be as brief as I can.
Thank you.
I really wish Patrick was here. He's on holiday in the Caribbean, bless him. But UCL. Okay, we've got a 60-strong DLO who need that information from projects day one. So we already have, and Subsea Vice President, I don't know if he's here, but what's his name? Dave Stevens, who brought me into UCL. He and actually Patrick, the BISRA and Subsea have updated the requirements in line with the BSA. So I don't know if anyone's looked, but Patrick has done this, and if you ask him nicely, I'm sure he will share with you his findings. Because you're right, handover is not legal, but we're hinged. The health safety and the O&M are in UCL the same document, and we insist, not just HRBs, non-HRBs, HRBs, we insist on golden thread. So the main thing I'm trying to understand here is that there is guidance out there, and we all should be picking up on that. We used AI to actually make sure that we were picking up on the relevant bits, and we've got an improved handover documentation process and a procedure and a standard. It's security, fire, O&Ms, health and safety file, everything.
Yeah, Margaret, my principal driver for this is we've got you, Renee, probably Nick and lots of people that are doing things in isolation. And
Mhm.
what I'm trying to do is to bring them together so that we're not doing the same thing over and over again, so
Mhm.
that we can build on that. Now,
Mhm.
how that collaboration works is up to us to carry on with, but
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to achieve. I'd like
fantastic.
to quit now, Tim.
Sorry, have you finished, George?
Yeah, I was just going to say we need to get on to Tim. So,
Yeah, we do, but I'm going to say something first.
of course.
So we're talking about this grouping, which is, I think you can agree, very exciting, quite unique. If you're interested in getting involved with that, and I must say, I must stress, it's a work stream, it's a working group. The word work, it's collaborative, it's about collaboration. It means you do something. Yeah. So if you're not prepared to speak or put something in the chat, this isn't the group for you, probably. Now, if anybody's interested in, excuse me, if anybody's interested in joining that, we will be doing one-to-one chats, just 50-minute chats with everybody who's interested in joining to get their perspective before we actually roll it out. So anybody interested in doing that, put automate in the chat. Put automate in the chat and we will be in touch with you.
And it may be that you're willing to do it because you're already using AI, or you. I mean, I've been talking to. We're already talking with TrueLens, so certainly they've got something to offer. And there's, to be frank, there's quite a few people that are doing that same type of work. So what we want to do is make sure that we've got access to best of breed solutions and glue them together. So that's really it.
Absolutely. There's no point in everybody learning how to do it or setting up their own systems and repeating the same work over and over again when you can come to our meeting and get a head start on what you're doing and contribute because you've done something that somebody else hasn't. So automate in the chat if you want to join him and be part of this very exciting initiative.
Yeah.
At which
Okay.
point I will
Tim.
hand over to Tim.
Thank you very much. Right, so I'll press the button that says present in Teams. And we're going to live. Right, okay. Okay, what I'm going to do is just give you some, what I wanted to do is ensure that I was showing you things that anybody can do today. So you don't need anything sophisticated. And the main, the thing I was going to focus on is doors and missing information that, well, when it's missing, it's information that is there, but it's just not in the right format. So the first one is very in door schedules. We get ironmongery schedules or ironmongery sets, and it's very hard to actually find that ironmongery. Usually, it's in a document buried somewhere. And so what we want to make sure is that we can actually get to information very quickly. That is where the ROI comes in, the return on investment, the business case. If you're spending half an hour finding information and you can do it in 30 seconds, then there's a scale up. How many times do you do it? Then that's when you can actually work out what the worth is. So the first thing that we've got when we are actually just working with a PDF based file system is that we want to find information about a certain door. We might have a drawing of that type. So can we find that? And how do we find it? We look at a door schedule. Now, this door schedule here, that's been taken out of this. That's an image out of this a spreadsheet that was originally embedded into a PDF. So, but imagine that you've already got it as a spreadsheet, and then you've got to work out where do I find the ironmongery for that particular door type that's referenced in there. So that could take up to half an hour for somebody to find. So what we want to be able to do is be able to just click on the door, get to the record in the schedule, and then also get to the documents as well. So the document there is one that says, oh, that's the drawing, and the other document says that's the ironmongery. And what we haven't done is we've still kept the original information. We haven't altered it. or whatever. So those are very simple things that we want to be able to achieve. And how do we actually achieve it? Sometimes we don't actually have door schedules, particularly for steel doors, which are probably one of the most critical elements in buildings for fire, because the door manufacturers produce a drawing for every single door. So they don't see and nobody asks them for a door schedule. They just say, well, you've got the drawing. And the drawing looks like that, and you've got all of these. But you really do want to see these as a collective of, well, what's the common information with all of those? So what I did there was I simply thought, right, well, let's try out the chat, the LLM. In this case, it's ChatGPT because that's my go-to one. It knows enough about how I operate anyway. So I give it a file and I give it a prompt to see what information it can find. So first of all, can you actually read this drawing and find out salient information from it? So it's a series of prompts that you need to go through to experiment to then end up with an end result. So once you're happy with that, then ultimately this is the end of the chat. And I just added more and more doors and said, well, just keep adding them to a table. So I was happy with the table that got further in the chat, and the end result was the schedule. Now the other example is the apartment schedule. And I don't know why, but nobody had actually supplied an apartment schedule for over 100 odd, I think 180 flats, which was quite disturbing. But the information existed in a series of documents, in a series of drawings. So again, using exactly the same principle, the general arrangement drawings had on it the apartments with a series of text on them. So it's simply a matter of actually giving it a more explicit instruction on what to extract and how to extract it. If you just said, give me the apartment information, it would probably have only come out with one line. But I told it explicitly, it was 4 lines. So accurately describing in the prompt what you want to get out is part of this process of achieving a good result. And again, that's once that was out, we then had the apartment types. Now, if you've ever done or received information about housing units, you'll find that they do general arrangement drawings, and then they have unit types, and then in the unit types they'll have bathroom types and they'll have kitchen types. So again, no schedule for this, no apartment type schedule referencing this, but it was all contained in the drawings. So how did I achieve that? Well, in the whole series of drawings that were apartment types, they had a table, and the table then referenced all this other information. So again, using exactly the same methodology, give it an explicit instruction on what to look for, and then give it all the files to actually process. And then eventually I could then deduce from that, these are the kitchen types, and then these are the bathroom types. And then we could associate it all together in the spatial model, so that when you clicked on an apartment, the zone had, because we use Kobe notation here, a zone is an apartment, and then a zone can have a series of documents, and then you've got access to them that way. And that really is the end of my presentation. Just a very simple thing that anybody can actually do. Now, part of what we do is then look and then try and put these into pipelines, so that we can take what we've learned, generate sophisticated prompts, and then put them into a pipeline. The important thing I want to stress here, because it sort of came up as one of the dangers of AI, is that if you start to materially alter the source information, where does the liability lie? And therefore you need a level of providence. And so what I think we've done probably more out of by the process rather than intentionally, it just happens that we've now got a process where we can just upload a spreadsheet and connect it. And then if we want to, we could extrapolate, or we could import the contents of that spreadsheet into the database for quicker, better analysis. But ultimately, we still have that line of providence that says this has come from here. And it's the same with the ironmongery. One of the reasons that the ironmongery information that people get will be the original tender from the tendering process, is because there's a perception from the manufacturers, well, maybe not perception, but they have constantly been undercut by value engineering processes that use their data to get a cheaper price. So all the work that they put in producing the ironmongery schedule then gets lost. That's why you end up with big things all over their documents. What they weren't asked for is at the end of the project, their handover information should be in a digital machine readable form. So some of the problems that people will mention, the solutions are, well, after you've overcome this problem and you've won the job and you've been paid, your handover information should be contained in this, and that should be part of the contract as well. And I think it's the same for a lot of things. If you don't ask how you want it, then how is anybody ever going to know to deliver it?
Well, it seems that Tim's bringing an awful lot to that automate table, doesn't it? A reminder, anybody who wants to be part of that and benefit from, well, at the moment, Tim's work, put your name, put automate into the chat, and we will be in touch with you. I must stress, you'll get invites to a 15-20 minute one-to-one chat with one of our steering committee. Those are basically required, really, if you're going to participate in that, in this. So please do look out for those invitations and sort out a date in the calendar.
Yeah, there
George,
is one other thing, Richard.
Sorry,
yeah,
Tim. Sorry.
I'm going to put in the chat, because we're getting to the sort of last 5 minutes. I don't know whether you've got a link to it.
We're ready. If it's the
questionnaire,
we've got it.
So, yeah, we've done a questionnaire. Can I paste that in, Richard, or are you going to do that?
If you can do it, or I can get Giz to.
No, I will paste that in. This is a questionnaire we'd like people to do after the meeting. Just so that.
Sorry, go on.
And then we'll share it in the notes when you do the summary, when Giz does the summary.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We're basically asking people what technologies they're what AI tools they're using, what they're using them for, and all that sort of stuff. That's the sort of thing that Tim's covered in.
It's something that you may not know all the answers, and so we're asking you to ask colleagues, because it's information that's going to be valuable to all of us. So by participating, you're helping everyone. Vic.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Tim, in order to do the takeoff then from the PDF, I'm assuming it's going to have been like a BIM model or something in the first place, something where you've got that.
Well,
no,
yeah, okay, no, that's a very good question. Because we're reverse engineering information, this is equally applicable to legacy information. Particularly, I mean, the last meeting I was in, there was a lady who was responsible for 200 high-rise buildings for the fire doors, and I wondered, well, how did you pull together all the doors for the fire doors? Did you have any drawings? What did you have? And was it an image, or was it a plan or anything? And usually. There is some sort of plan, and there are some sort of doors, and they may have door numbers on it, and you could just use that to actually quickly build up the door schedule so that you've got a starting point. And it's ever so good, because you can just keep appending the data set. It may not be able to tell you whether the doors are a single swing or double swing or whatever, but unless you ask the question, you won't know the answer. But very much the reason I love doing some of this stuff is that I can test out, because what the chats do, that when you're using the API, the API won't necessarily use what the user interface does, which is do pre-processing. So, for example, if you upload a PDF and it's just actually an image in a PDF, then it will OCR it. So, and if you want, you can just open up the thinking and you'll see exactly what it's doing. So it'll write a little Python script and it will run it through something called Tesseract, which is a standard library that's also available in Python, and it will OCR it. But if you do use the API, then you've got to do the OCRing, if that makes sense. So these are
Yeah.
sort of things that I found. There are certain things their user interfaces are very good at doing, and their APIs are sort of limited
So
on
Tim,
stuff.
yeah, we're running out of time, but thank you very much for that. Vic, I think the important thing here, you're very valuable in this group because you know what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we've also got people like Renee and Nick who know how to deliver what you want, you know, but we're much stronger, I think, if we do that collectively.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like, you know, we can get back to what the likes of BIM was originally for, was that collaboration, having that full information attached to the drawing, and we could take it off. And we know that's not really taken off in a lot of client groups, and often that's cost and training and what have you. So it feels like we sort of can get back to that in a way, and we've got a bit more knowledge ourselves as well.
Yeah, I think one of the really useful things of this is that by doing it this way, then we can end up with something where clients like you can understand what good looks like. So then when you then are instructing supply chains to deliver new buildings, you can then audit what's being delivered much more in a much more structured way, and to be frank, reject it if it's not being done properly. So we can use this to inform and really get everybody's to up their game to actually deliver the golden thread stuff properly, because at the moment I'm not seeing it happening.
No, it's right, and it seems like a good piece of work. This seems quite interesting.
Brilliant.
Ricardo's asking in the chat whether anybody's using OpenClaw. That's part of the purpose of that questionnaire, so please do fill it out. Okay, unless anybody's got anything else quick, we will see you at the next meeting, which is, what's the date, Jess, for the next meeting? George, you know? It's 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks today at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's the 19th.
Yeah. So, Doga.
Hello, just wanted to ask, PI insurance covers of the consultants, architects, MEP, structural on AI subject. This subject comes up a lot in our practice, and I'm wondering how is the generic applied approach to this subject?
I think the Michael's an insurance broker, so carry on.
He can answer that
very quickly. Appreciate time. So I do a lot of work with professional services for projects, and this question does come up very frequently. What I like to call institutional weight. So insurers are considering the adoption of AI in the build process, not just build safety or build control, but how consultants basically expedite how they do their work, how they perform their functions in the supply chain. So a very clear message from insurers downwards is there still needs to be a lot of human interaction, because there is nothing formally recognized yet. Yes, everybody knows ChatGPT and CapCut for video capture, all these things exist, but there's no unified approach to the risk or ramifications of the losses attributed to it, which is a long way of saying we don't know how bad the landscape could be in terms of loss. So they're unable to quantify or recognize specific systems or software to validate how someone's performed their function. So it still needs to be very human, if that makes sense.
And I think that's, if I could just say, I think that's where the Golden Thread Task Force comes in, because we're a community and we can put together best practice ways of procedures that can then people can follow. That's not to take any liability away from people, but what it is, it's giving you a framework on which to work, and we can develop together the sort of validation things that are needed.
And it defines liability as well, and it will help to define liability. Anna, very quickly.
Very quick. Totally. Just a second. A query about PI and digital twin. And using AI, because in a way, if you don't know how information is produced, you can't basically verify the information unless you know what you're looking at. Yeah. So I think just to be careful, because I think, Tim, you're doing an amazing analysis, and I think I agree with you. But for example, if somebody asked me to use your method to check somebody else's information, I would never put our design responsibility onto that. Yeah. I would never be able to get it out of the office and say, I can verify this. We could do this to our own information, yeah, with some knowledge, because we know where the information is coming from. We know where the kind of the bottlenecks might be, or where something might be missing, because we know the project. But if somebody asked me to do this on somebody else's information, I would never ever put our PI on this, yeah. So, and these are the conversations we have to have amongst ourselves, yeah, because the likelihood is that if we're going to offer this as a service or ourselves as experts, we need to be able to do it on other people's information as well. And I think that there is a great big risk in here. So let's keep talking. Thanks.
Arguably,
I
there's
put the
an
wrong
even
link in there.
arguably there's an even bigger risk, though, Anna, and that is that the risk is for the client and the asset team that they've been given information that isn't connected.
Oh, exactly, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, no, but well, yes. I suppose that's a primary risk. That's why they're coming to us, right? Or to you.
Yeah.
But for example, if you start, because I was just in the background trying to do this exactly the same thing to one of our projects that I don't know very well, and as soon as you don't know whether you're looking at design information or as built information, you're already in trouble, yeah. Because you might be looking at design information, which might be completely different from as-built information, and questions like that are not answerable by simple data collection. They need to be answered by tracking back who delivered the information and how.
Yeah.
So that's another level of provenance, isn't it? Is that
Mhm.
you need that chain of
Absolutely.
proof. Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. But I also think that what comes out of this group and the methodologies of testing is that people test their own data before submitting it. And if they're using the same criteria and it passes it, then it should pass in the other one, as long as the other person, the other entity, is using the same system or the same scope rules, But yeah,
Tim, we've got 4 people waiting to speak.
Sorry.
So, Paul.
So yeah, I was just going to say, it's the provenance of the date that what you're running the AI on, in terms of the information that you've received is accurate. As somebody's already mentioned, it could be design, tender, not as built data. They could have been changed. So that whole provenance of the information that you're doing is one of the initial risks that needs to be taken up. But this can only really be dealt with by survey at the end of the day. But at least it gives you something to start moving on with.
Agreed. Michael?
Just to, I suppose, emphasise what Anna was saying about accountability and competency, where in the professional services space, you are part of that, whether you're principal or not in the design sphere. Your head's on the block, if you will, from a risk perspective or liability perspective, or even indemnity perspective, slightly different. So the main thing is if you are feeding information and have your own repository or you use somebody else's data, I think there needs, for a reason of traceability, there needs to be, how have you got to this conclusion using AI? What did you feed the AI? What prompt? Which language library did you resource from? Like you do in Wikipedia, you have citations. Where did that come from? I use this prompt. It does add to the data sphere that we'd be delving into. But what you get at the head of the cone, of course, is the answer you hopefully have, which then the next collective aspect of the supply chain, the next person to validate, can then trace, oh, actually, you fed this information. They can change it if they want to, but then you run the risk of project overruns and delays, accountability discrepancies, challenges. But that sort of negates the collaborative behavior of what we're trying to achieve. So there are ways around it. But how have you come to the conclusion you have? Show you're working is what I like to say. Definitely counts.
Right. So Richard's just said, really, we should have allowed 90 minutes for this particular session, and I think
Yeah,
that's
well,
what we're
we've got
going
a
to do
lot.
next time.
Well, the thing is, we've got in this group what we want, exactly what we want for
Yeah.
the Automate group, that their people are lively and engaged. They're not just
Yeah.
sitting there, which is fantastic. But obviously, it does an hour's not long enough, so we're going to make the next 2 meetings 90 minutes.
So, Margaret.
Yeah, just to say, yeah, no, absolutely. We've had the pain and suffering. That's why we're here chomping at the bit.
Yeah,
So that's good. But just a couple of things. Anna said, not sure. I'm not picking up on anything. I'm just saying, not sure if the information being presented is as built or design information. My question is, why is it not stamped as built? If it's not stamped as built, then it's not as built. Is my take on things. And hopefully, and then my next point is all roads lead to the client. I keep saying this. I was London Borough of Lambeth for 17 years, and I was 18 years Transport for London. Now I'm 7 years UCL. Clients, they get away with murder. If the project team don't turn around and say, you've not given me the as-builts, I need the as-builts. You've not given me this. It's back to the old CDM. The client is responsible for giving the project team, and I'm talking projects here rather than, in occupation. I don't know if you're talking about in occupation, I'm talking about projects. The client's responsible for providing that pre-construction information. Yes, they utilise the principal designer. Yes, they utilise the design team. They utilise all sorts of people. But the client's responsible. And a lot of project teams are not turning around and saying, look, excuse me, Mr. Clark, Mrs. Clark, you haven't actually given me the as-built. That's what I need. I can't do anything unless I have that. And we had a brilliant team on the UCL quad. They were very, very forceful is the word. If you can't give me the as-built, I can't do this. I need this before I do that. And in a way, I know a lot of us, we love our clients, we don't want to upset them. So therefore we muddle on. But that is the key thing. Yeah, thank you.
Doga, you're the last one.
Sorry. Hi. Is there a way to connect ISO 19650 -2 parts 5.6.3, the check, review, approach to AI? I was wondering. So we're gonna design it and then check it and approve it. It's like 4 eyes policy. If it's 2 people, if it's more than 2 people, to approve third person before anything goes out, or in the incoming and outgoing information. I was wondering if there is a way to connect the AI to ISO 19650 is one of the parts on the check, review, approve process.
I think I can probably help with that. Okay, so the way that you can build an AI knowledge base is by using a RAG database. And what that basically, so that's for another discussion, but essentially you then connect everything, so it says check it against these regulations, or check it against these classifications or standards or whatever. So I think that is what you're talking about. And the great thing about the RAG database is that one of the it has it's basically a vector database that has basically taken information out of documents and then chunked it and converted it into numbers, which is then embeddings, and then allows it to be mathematically worked out as to what the associations are. That's why it's good. When you ask it a question, it all gets interpreted, sent to the LLM, just simply interprets what you're asking for. And the vector database is doing a lot of the crunching of the searching. So yeah, there's ways of doing it. The other thing is to actually have agents, and agents that also instruct other agents. So an agent is basically something that says you are the building regulation inspector, or you are the heating engineer, or whatever, and you can tell it what to do, and an agent can request information from another. This creates latency, so you don't get an instant answer. I mean, some of these agents can take a day to return, depending upon what they're doing. And And so I look at it and think everything's possible until it's not until it's impossible. So there's the tools are there. It's how you then build them together. It's like I suppose it's like putting an engine together or something like that.
Well, the trouble is the requirements of ISO 19650 aren't there unless the clients, the lead appointed parties, etc., write them in a format that can be read by AI, etc., and are machine readable.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, I hope everybody's found it worthwhile and useful, and that we've got a few people that want to really get engaged with this, because I think collectively we're much stronger than we are individually.
Absolutely. So
thank you.
Remember, 2 weeks today, same time, but it will be for 90 minutes. And see you all then if we don't see you. Oh, and next week, of course, on Wednesday is the monthly forum.
So that's Wednesday. Yeah, that's we'll be talking about this in the monthly forum, by the way. We'll be recruiting more people. So thanks very much for your contribution, everybody.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you. Are you circulating this across the USHA, George?
Can do. Yeah,
I
certainly.
think you should. I think you should. Yeah, because, you know, this is the language that we